To do is,
This meeting is being recorded.
so my name is Anne Marie, and I am going to, this is the last presentation for the 3-part series, and we're going to be talking about the art of saying no. And for me, it's something that I struggle with. I don't know if any of you struggle with this. And I like you, and I want this to be more of a relaxed, interactive discussion today. So I just want to ask any of you, and I hope, Sarah, so how do I'm going to put the view on gallery. So I want to ask people, just to begin the presentation, do you struggle with saying no? And maybe people can just raise their hand this time and I can call on them. If you struggle with saying no, why do you struggle with saying no? Okay, well, no, nobody struggles with saying no, which is a good thing. Okay, Anna, why do you struggle with saying no?
I think there's many different reasons why I struggle, but I think one of the main reasons that has become more apparent to me is maybe just like not wanting to let people down. Yeah, I think that's one of the main reasons.
Exactly, no, and take it, I mean, I am trying to become a reformed people pleaser. And I believe as teachers, we want to accommodate parents, colleagues, principal, because we want to help. But many times when we say no, or many times when we say yes to others, we're actually saying no to ourselves. Judy, do you
Sure.
struggle with saying no?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, one of the other reasons is that sometimes you say yes because you don't know that you can say no. I think especially when you're navigating maybe a new position or whatever. And so you want to give yourself high expectations. And so it's almost like you don't know that you can. So
Yes, right. And it could be maybe fearful, like, like you said, if it's a new job, feeling a little bit guilty, should I say no? Knowing what the parameters are in your building, absolutely. So tonight, let's go and we're going to start the presentation. I'm going to share my screen with all of you. And let's see, hopefully, oops, no, that's not going to be it. Let me just do this. Let's see, get rid of this. Boom. And that, good. Okay. So we'll start with this first slide here. And what I'm going to do is part of it is I'll put it on where I can see all of you. And then sometimes I'll take that off and I won't see you. But we'll start with the art of saying no. And we talked about some of the reasons. Unfortunately, or fortunately, during the last couple of years, we've had a lot of practice, and we still have a lot of practice about saying no. Now that they've lifted the mask mandate, some people are saying, no, I'm going to continue to wear a mask. And there are people, I know I have some friends that will say, I'm not ready to travel. So no, I won't be traveling this summer. Some people say, no, I'm only going to be traveling within the United States. And then we do have a couple of family members that are not vaccinated. And this summer, when our family all get together, I'm going to say, no, I cannot get together with that person. And especially when we do have some babies in the family. And I just think it would be unfair. So we've had a lot of practice with saying no. However, with that, there's a lot of judgment from other people. And, believe it or not, there's been a lot of criticism from both sides. And I know, Chicago teachers, you took a stand. We were not going to teach in a classroom where we felt that it was unsafe for you and for the students. And good for you. Taking a stand is really important. So, again, I'm Anne Marie. I am the people pleaser. And, I often wondered, where did that start? And it started back when little Anne Marie was a little girl, and my mother, said, well, I'm going to daycare. And I don't remember all of this, but this is what I was told, that my cousins had driven by this house that I was in. If people could mute, that would be great. So, they were riding their bikes, and they saw little Anne Marie, and she did not look happy. And they asked her mother, my aunt, which was their mother, if she could take care of me, which she agreed. But my mother said these words to me: if you are a bad, naughty girl, you will go back to the daycare. So you have to be on your best behavior. Well, that began my journey as a people pleaser. So about me, again, Sarah has told you about my background. I moved to Chicago 5 years ago, got certified in parent coaching through Dr. Shefali Tisbury. My business is called Heartwise Relationship Coaching, and it focuses on communication, developing communication between adult children, adult parents, and grandparents. And my mission is, I have a passion for educators. I mean, I did this job for 30 years, although I really feel that the job I found it easier within those maybe 15, 16 years. And the job is not the same job that I knew. However, that fact is that I am on a mission to present to teachers, to present to senior communities. This is my intention of how I want to spend my retirement years. And I have myself in this red super cloak because we all want to call upon our superpowers when we're in the midst of either difficult emotions or when we are creating what we consider our values. Sarah talked about how we're going to be the art of saying no, how we are going to learn. And I created this acronym, which is listen reflectively, engage in discussion, allow others to state their opinion, respect all opinions, and no sleeping or texting during the presentation. And then here, some of the workshop takeaways is talking about it's easy when we were younger to say no, talking about what are the 3 A traps when we're trying to say no, and the myth about saying no. And then we'll talk about some of the benefits of saying no, and we'll talk about the mantra. I have created this little, what I call the Bill of Rights, affirmations that we can tell ourselves when we're struggling to say no. So now what I'm going to do is we're going to go back and forth between, where is it? This section here and then over here. Okay. So now you won't see me for a little while, but I'll come back to, all right. So, oops. Okay. To move.
Anne Marie, sorry, before you keep going, I just wanted to let you know that since you're spotlighted, even when you share your screen, we can still see you.
Oh,
so you don't even need to go back and forth if you don't want to.
Okay,
So I just want to let
terrific.
you know, whatever you prefer.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. So I like this quote here. The power of no is so much more than the power of saying yes. Those 2 little letters, no, they have a lot of power to them. They can cause disappointment to others. They can cause a lot of emotion, and it can be, feeling of being rejected, disappointed, frustration. But there are two words that we need to say as part of our self-care. And this little blurb here is the beauty of saying no, which is you don't have to say no and explain it, which is what I always try to do. I go into this whole, reason, excuses, however you want to call it, without just saying, no, that's not going to work for me. And when you can discover that, yes, I don't have to give others an explanation, it really is a sense of freedom. At least that's what I find. So, as I said, when we were younger, we had no problem saying no. And I watch my grandchildren, and they're very little, they're toddlers, but they have no problem if I say, oh, it's cold, put on your coat. No. My little granddaughter, when she was very small, was putting sticks in the outlet, all the while shaking her head, no, 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 but saying yes to herself because that was pleasing. But then, as kids get older and into elementary school, as parents, we don't really have a problem saying no. Well, many of us don't. No, you can't watch TV on a school night, or no, you can't have your dessert unless you have dinner. But as children get older, they become teenagers. It becomes a little trickier because they're not so willing to accept our no. And this is really important because we need to set boundaries, and we need to model the power of saying no so they can say no effectively and communicate their feelings around that. I do remember when I was teaching at the secondary level, and a parent asked me, well, her child is not writing down their assignments. And again, the child was in ninth grade, not writing their assignments down. And so that's why they weren't doing well in their class. And I said, well, and they asked, the parent asked me, can I check their assignment book? And I had to say no, because that's giving me the power. And the parent needed to give that power of their child learning for them. And what kind of values does that family have? Is that family, because that's really what we're essentially looking at when we say no. What are the family values? Do they value friendship with their child more than they value the fact that, learning is important? They want their child to be an independent learner and tell that child that, your learning is now your responsibility. However, we're here to support you. So it just, it's really interesting in that respect. And then, we have here the older folks. When, your older child now has adults and they have kids and they're asking you perhaps to babysit, well, you can say no. And this is where I struggle, because I don't want to disappoint my children, and yet I want to see my grandchildren. However, there are times when, you're getting older and you're tired and you do have things that you want to do. So it's really important to create that, or create that positive no, where you're saying you don't necessarily have to say you're sorry, but actually you're giving yourself permission to say that you matter. So, welcome. So now we're talking about reaching down to your core values. And this is really very, very important. And what I would want to ask all of you is and I like to talk about this, and we'll have plenty of time to share. I'd like you now to take a few minutes and maybe write down your 5 values. And, so for example, if you value honesty, generosity, maybe you value um, doing good for your community, helping others, humor, perhaps, and I know myself with the ladies who I associate with, everyone is valuing learning, especially at this age, because it keeps your brain active and healthy. So when you're saying no, and it really is important to look at, well, what are my values here? And also, because I have a very strong inner critic, if I say, or when I was saying no before, my inner critic would say, well, you're not going to have any friends. And when I moved to Chicago, because it was a new state 5 years ago, I had no friends. So I, in a sense, was functioning as the continuation of my people pleasing. I joined this organization and I became a member of what they call the steering committee. And if someone asked me to do something, even if it wasn't part of what I would do on this particular steering committee, I would say, sure, I'll do it. Okay, I'll do it. That works for me, because I needed friends. I wanted people to like me until it became too much. So I feel now, for me, I really need to be very clear on my boundaries, be very clear on my values, and be very clear on how I'm going to say no. So here we have the what I like to call, and had built on the slides, the little mouse trap. And so here we go. First little mouse, accommodate. We say no because perhaps we want to accommodate the needs of others. And I've seen this, when we have good intentioned parents who go, into a store, and their child is, I want this particular toy. I want this particular toy. And your value is that, you want your child to respect what you have said to them, and also to understand, perhaps you created that boundary that when you go into stores, that they're not going to be asking you to buy them something. However, they're taking a full-blown tantrum in the middle of the store. So perhaps you accommodate them because you just need to get out of that store quickly. Or it could be that colleague that continues to come into your classroom borrowing materials. And that has happened to me because my room, in effect, was like Staples. But then, that's money that you put out yourself. And perhaps, you don't have I don't want to say courage, or maybe you just don't want to have the time to have to say no to that person. So you just continue to accommodate them. And maybe you're really angry now, and anger drives us to attack somebody. So, it could be that, that colleague that comes in and continues to ask you the same question all the time. They're just at you. Are you going to do this? And what about this? And can I borrow this? And you blow up. And perhaps, maybe you don't care so much about the relationship. Maybe you haven't really thought of a way that you could talk with them before, and now you're in full-blown attack mode. And another way is you avoid. For example, if you see a particular person and maybe this person wants you to go, maybe to have drinks with them after, or perhaps that, they're calling you to spend some time. Maybe your personalities just don't jive, or perhaps one of your values is that on the weekends, you have food shopping to do, you have maybe you have parents that you need to see, you have children that you're going to their games. So instead of just saying no, you avoid the discussion. And I've done all of these. So reactive versus proactive. And as humans, when we feel very strong emotions, we react. And I have learned through the work that I have been doing that it's not the best way to handle difficult situations or situations that you don't need to give an answer right away. I know in our society, things are moving fast paced. You push a button, you're getting a response. You don't have to do that with human connection. You can take a pause. You can, what I like to say, go to the balcony. And when you're in the balcony and you're looking from a distance, maybe you're thinking about it from a different lens, a different perspective. Now there's a space to develop clarity, calmness, instead of going and reacting too soon or too quickly. And listen to the emotions behind the response before you say, I just can't do that, not now. Because our emotions have been telling us things, especially during the last 2 years. Listen to them. They are signposts, and I also like to compare them to, the lighthouse. They're sending out messages all the time. Take a look. Things aren't working here. Investigate why this is upsetting you. Look at sometimes past triggers. Why exactly are you getting so disappointed, so confused, so frustrated? Talk about it, but allow yourself to just set the pause and then boundaries. And again, because I was full-blown people pleaser, I didn't even know what a boundary was. I had no boundaries. When other people said no to me or had their boundary, it's like, why are they doing that? And all of my emotions around what they were doing were coming up under the surface, and all of a sudden, I was extremely emotional, very frustrated. But now I know how to create those boundaries. It's really important to know what your boundaries are. And boundaries change all the time. We do have those life-affirming boundaries when it requires, safety and our health. But it's important also to keep boundaries porous, because as humans, they are going to change over time. So why is it so hard to say no? And at the beginning, we heard from people, perhaps it could be, like someone had mentioned, possibility of fear of missing out on something. If I say no to this particular request, is the person going to ask me again? It could be a nice invite, but you can't go on the particular day. Perhaps they won't ask you again. But chances are, if the way you say no, happy, I'm so, maybe you can say, thank you so much for the great invitation. However, I have to decline this time, but keep me in mind next time. That's perfectly acceptable. Or, somebody had mentioned that they're at maybe a new job or at a new school for them. And perhaps they're afraid to say no, because if they're saying no, how is that going to look in front of other teachers or their principal? So again, you have to kind of work it out in your own mind, how you're going to say no, and to give a positive no and a respectful no. And when you do that, trust me, people are going to look at you with a new lens. They're going to admire you. You could be the role model for how they want to continue to lead their life. And so this is how I operated. I was, the people pleaser. And I want to say that I always needed validation. Oh, isn't she so great? Because I was a special ed teacher and I would consult, especially working at the high school, with a variety of teachers from all different subject areas. So I wanted to please them all. I also needed to abide by what was on the educational plan, but it was also my responsibility to make sure that the teachers were making those necessary accommodations. So it was important for me to work with the teacher. Maybe I was a people pleaser. Oh, okay, I'm going to work with you. Anything that you want, let's see if we can work together. But the need for validation was so strong for me. And now, through the work that I've been doing, the only validation, and again, I'm not preaching to you, I'm just sharing with you what I found, is really the only validation you need is yourself. Because if you're constantly waiting for that validation from outside people, it's never going to happen. And then there's the, well, I don't know, that maybe would work for me. I don't know, let me, think about it. Maybe this person is going to avoid the situation altogether because they can't say no. And that self-doubt can really do a number on our health because you're constantly wavering. Should I? Shouldn't I? Should I go? Will I be missing out? Should I do this new, maybe you're thinking about taking a class this summer or participating in a group, but then, maybe you have to look for daycare. And I don't know if this is, important enough for me to do. Again, make the decision and think about your values as you create that decision. And then here we have no. And, it's a mistake to think that no is selfish. And I remember thinking about, well, this person's kind of selfish because remember, I was always serving my head to other people in my heart. And so why wouldn't somebody else want to do that? Well, they were smarter than me. They were taking care of their own needs. They valued themselves and they had good boundaries. So I want us all to be comfortable with flexing our no muscle. And once you start to do that, it becomes easier. And, just probably a few weeks ago in this organization that I'm in, one of the people in the organization said something to me that completely was against my value, and I called that person on it. Now, it caused me to withdraw from my role on the steering committee not because I was being a baby about it, but it was because I no longer wanted to be around people that had those certain beliefs. I was starting to say, this is not how I want to be treated. Before, I would feel really bad and I would maybe hold on to resentment for a long time and pretend, oh, everything is just fine. And now I wanted to speak my truth. And, I did something, it was probably about 7 months ago when I got together with some of my friends from Massachusetts, and something again happened, and I called one of the men on it. I basically said, you know what, own your shit about this. And I felt a sense of freedom. And my other friend in the group called me over and he said, you handled that so well. Good for you. And, again, because I like a little validation, but I felt that this was, again, freeing for me. And we went on and had a great time after. And I held no resentment. So it's speaking your truth. And the way you speak your truth is you do it in such a way, you don't have to do it the way I did it in terms of, you got to own your shit, because I was getting very aggravated with him. But then we talked about it a little bit after, and he understood where I was coming from. And we were both able to take a time out. And say no politely. And that's, you don't have to say I'm sorry. Like, for example, this lady said, can you pick me up at the airport? And this lovely woman said, no, I have an appointment. Now, could she have said, if this was any other day, I would have, but I'm looking at my calendar and I have an appointment. I would have said, which I don't need to. I'm really sorry about that, but I'm not going to do that anymore. As long as I feel that I'm respectful of the other person, because especially if it's somebody that I feel I want to stay connected to, you want to do it in a way that's going to also allow them to still feel connected to you. But you also need to be connected to yourself first. And here we have somebody saying, maybe it's a grandchild saying, Grandma, do you want to go to dinner with me? And Grandma politely says, well, I'm really not hungry right now. Now, I personally, if my grandchild call, would be like, well, I might not be hungry right now, but I certainly would like to just see you. So, maybe we schedule a time where we can see each other. But you don't have to. It's really just stating your fact. She didn't do anything wrong. She just said, no, I'm not hungry right now. And another situation where, can I borrow a little money? Well, I love her response. I don't lend money to family. That's a policy. And some people use that, my policy is this, or my values are this. And they're not going to budge on certain things. And so it could be, that same sibling keeps coming to you all the time. Can I borrow money? Well, the first time you're happy and you say, yes, okay, you accommodate their need. Maybe you respond angrily, get a budget, get another job. Or every time you see their number come up on your cell phone, you avoid them. Or you simply say, I have a policy. I don't lend money to family members, or I don't feel comfortable lending money to anybody. It's not a bad thing. It doesn't show that you're not generous and you don't value generosity, because you do. If your value is generosity, and we know as humans, and we've seen it during the pandemic, we still see it now with the war in Ukraine, there is a lot of kindness in the world. Yes, I know there's a lot of hatred too, but we're saying no to a lot of the hatred now that's going on in our world. We're standing up behind people that don't have a voice, that people that are not accepted at certain tables, maybe because of their color of their skin, maybe because of the fact that they love somebody other than, a man or a woman, depending. So we can stand up for those people, and we should, but we can do it in a respectful way, because that's your value. You are standing up for injustices. Maybe you see injustice in your school. Stand up for it. And say no politely. Perhaps this is a loved one, could be your child, and they have a big story, let me tell you about. And, she says, well, sorry, I can't talk right now, but I have a meeting scheduled. That's beautiful. Nothing wrong with that. You could add, if you wanted to, call you at another time. However you want to do it, but you don't need to, as long as you state the facts and you state them in a respectful, politeful way. People will respond respectfully to you. And if they don't, perhaps that's not the person that you want to spend a lot of time with. And you may have to say no. You no longer want to be in that particular friendship. So how you say no is very important. Are you saying an assertive no, taking care of your needs? So for example, you're in Starbucks, you waited in a long line, and they make your drink. And, I know today people have all sorts of requirements, certain milks, certain types of syrups, they want this, they don't want that. And the poor barista is trying to accommodate, because that's what their job is. They want to say yes and make you happy. But you can be assertive, and you get the drink and you say, this isn't what I had ordered. Would it be possible for you to could I possibly give you back this drink? And, could you kindly make me another drink? That's all. But if you're aggressive and say, I've waited in this line for so long, and now I was very clear on how I wanted you to make this drink, and you made it wrong. Well, that's really not the way to exert your no. Take a step back, breathe, do whatever you have to do. But coming on like that to somebody, aggressively like that, is not going to win you any popularity contest among anybody. And here it is, where, you're trying to dominate the conversation, perhaps. So you get really aggressive. And it could be, maybe at a teacher's meeting. And I've seen this, of course, because I was always the person who sat there and was, okay, not going to say anything, but felt it inside. I've seen people pointing to other members with their finger like this and communicating, in a belligerent way. No, how could you do that? Trying to dominate the conversation. And I ask, we have lots of hatred going on in our world, per se. We don't have to create it in our workplace, and especially modeling that to our students. My mission to create kind environments so our children can thrive. And the way we can do this, because kids are always watching, no matter how you try to cover up those feelings, or you think you're hiding behind your mask. In a sense, you did before, but now in maybe some classrooms, you don't have to wear the mask. But body language tells people how you're feeling. Your energy tells people how you're feeling. students need good modeling. And by allowing yourself to say no in a kind way, especially, to the little student who over and what's wrong with you? Aren't you listening to me? You never listen to me. And so what did they end up doing? They shame the child. And therefore, that child is always afraid to ask questions. We are not modeling good behavior around these children. So my goal is to hopefully I'm sure you all are aware of what good no's look like, and then in a sense, what aggressive no's look like. But we should not be modeling those aggressive responses in front of the students in our classroom. It's not needed, it's not necessary. And I'm not lecturing you. I'm just, it's so passionate. I'm so passionate about this because as a special ed teacher, I have seen it all from elementary school to high school, and how teachers have treated those kids who have learning challenges. I mean, I remember, one teacher would say, no, I'm not going to work with you on that. Your special ed teacher, Mrs. Downey, is coming in. Because what message is that sending to the child? Anyway, I will be sending you a survey, and the survey will be, are you a people pleaser? And I have responded to the survey, and it's still showing that I am a people pleaser, but yet I am really working extremely hard on my boundaries, on my emotions, and on my assertiveness to say, no, that does not work for me. And some of the description we see are, people pleasers. They are givers. We're all givers as teachers. We want to be liked by everybody. Isn't that a human need? But we also need to take care of ourselves, teachers. And for all of you who are in the trenches, it's such a difficult job. And I have been told by some of my friends, and this is when I was in Massachusetts, well, aren't you lucky you get the summer off and you get a pension? I had all I had to do to want to go over and put my finger in that person's face and let them know on a daily basis we are faced with when we enter the classroom. And so I don't know, depending on the relationship you have with the person, sometimes it really, I avoided the discussion. Now I will have the courage to have the discussion, but do it in a way that will allow me to be mindful of what I'm saying. That no, you're not going to talk to me and tell me that my job, I'm so lucky to have this job, and I'm so lucky to have a pension that in Massachusetts is actually the money that we paid into that. And so again, it's just having the courage and not knowing that, and knowing that you don't have to be the people pleaser if it's done in the right way. And so let's get talking, folks. So I made up these, what I call table talk cards. And I don't, Sarah, we can all hear each other, right? I want to ask people here, what emotions, we'll start with the first one, do you feel when someone does not acknowledge your no? can we have some discussion around this now? Anybody?
Sure, I'll start. I'm sorry I
Thank
haven't been
you.
online. Hi. No, thank you so much for what you're saying. I had a meeting with a parent and I had to drive when you started, so I'm so sorry.
Oh,
Hi, everybody.
thank you,
Um,
Kimberly.
I'm not looking my best, but
You look beautiful to me.
oh, you're so sweet. I struggle with people pleasing tremendously, and I'm just so touched by everything you're saying. Up until recently, it was a very isolating feeling, and I struggle with feelings of neglect and abandonment because of just some trauma that I experienced in my childhood. So when I finally work up the nerve to tell someone no, and it's probably because I really do have a conflict that cannot be changed. I get feelings of anxiety, and my stomach is unpleasant, and like I get really like cold and tingly and all this. And a couple things result. The person doesn't take me seriously, or the person is so displeased with me, or it has really cut off communication. They're just shocked because I'm not the type to ever say no. And the thought of losing someone I care about so deeply, who I'm usually always game to support and assist and love and help, terrifies me. So it brings up all of these feelings. Also, I don't like to make mistakes. I've been researching fixed mindset, growth mindset, all that. And it brings up just all these feelings of inadequacy, which I struggle with. So it's almost easier to amend my schedule just to assist so I don't feel like crap.
So you accommodate. And
Yeah.
yet when you practice this, because I'm 60 work that I have been doing, because the program that I was in, it's really, I like to call it East meets West, where it's very spiritual, it's very introspective. It wasn't until I recognized my internal trauma to really know what are the triggers and why do I always feel that I have to say yes. So Kimberly, thank you so much for the courage that you are taking to even admit this in front of everybody. I did not have that courage. I feel like you're on your way, Kimberly. Really just acknowledging it, being aware of it, and then finding tools eventually that will help you, and practicing and really understanding what your boundaries are. It's just so beautiful hearing what you said. And I so relate to you when I was your age. And, it wasn't until, like I said, until I went through this program that I really felt that I can say no. And for those people that are continuing to be in my court and, they're there. And for other people, I might have to and I have had to say goodbye. Because one of my friends, Kimberly, that I met here in Chicago told me, I am not the same gal she met when I first came here from Massachusetts. Because she was on that committee and she saw my people pleasing in full, how I was operating. So thank you so much for sharing. Anybody else? Anybody else have, what emotions do you feel when someone?
I do. This is Kimberly also. And I, like thinking about that, and, just everyone's gone through so much trauma, but, I'm actually looking at the second card about saying, difficulty saying no and why. And I struggle so bad. It's been traumatic. My sister is just involved in a terrible fire, and she was burned pretty bad. And she asked me to do something and I can't do it in the moment. I feel horrible. I try to find another time, but sometimes it's in the moment. So, because she's, and the same thing with my mom. There's a lot of trauma going on with something that happened to her too. It's just, so it's like in those, I'm like the one that takes care of the family. I'm that person, and I'm the only one around. So, thank you. And so it's very, very difficult for me to even think of saying no to these situations.
Kimberly, thank you so much for sharing your story. And it's a tough one. I mean, and also you're giving to so many people. You're a teacher. What grade do you teach?
5th and 7th now. I'm in a brand new school too, so saying no to new teachers is tough too.
It's really, and we're in this be able to do that. But I'm sure, that you are working out ways that you can, help out. But I want to say, because I was that person in my family, I never took care of my own needs. And taking care of your own needs is not getting your hair done, or, I mean, that could be one way, or, getting your nails done. It's really taking care of the emotional needs. And I never could do that because I didn't seem to have a moment of rest. There was always somebody who needed me. And I should have taken that time out. I should have went to the balcony. So when you think about, you're overwhelmed or whatever, visualize, meditate, and think about yourself in the balcony to have perhaps a new perspective. Thank you so much for sharing.
And thank you for your words, because, all of that personal has been obviously going into work, and, this just trying to find that balance. So I appreciate your words. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else?
I think that sometimes if you say no, then you think, oh, I'm so stupid. This is not a good idea. The reason I'm saying no to something, they may be proposing something, an idea or, a plan of some sort, and I don't think it's a good plan, and I'll say no. And then I start second guessing myself and saying, oh, maybe I'm just kind of stupid here and I don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah. And and it's hard, it's hard because if all of the team members are excited, and they have this idea, and maybe you're more of a seasoned person, or maybe you're not. Maybe you think, how is this going to work? Perhaps, and now I know, taking the time again to sit up on the balcony, take a few minutes to say that pause, I'll come back. Let me think about this. Perhaps I'm going to write it down just so I'm clear, and I'll get back to you with my response. So instead of saying quickly, oh, no, you know what, that's not going to work out. They never did it that way, blah, blah, blah. Taking the time to just think about, okay, what are the possibilities here? Am I reacting too quickly, or I'm going to be true to myself and say, well, you know what? I took the time. I looked at everything through my lens, and also I'm trying to look through your lens. And I just can't go along with this idea because boom, or, it's not going to work for me. So it's just simply stating the fact. Let's just go on to maybe the next question. And who are the people in your life whom you have the most difficulty saying? And anybody here have a comment? I know I talked to you about my children, my adult children. Anybody here have people in their life that it's really hard for them to say no? Any comments? You'll get a gold star.
I can go. I think for me, I mean, especially I think about power dynamics, and I think about, for me specifically, people that hold, your job, your salary, your, means of well-being. So that comes to mind for me specifically. But I think aside of that too, I realize that I have the hardest time saying no to more dominant personalities, that it's more of a personality thing, just because I don't know how to navigate sometimes that after conversation or that explanation, if that makes sense. So I've been trying to explore that a little bit more, just because I'm more of an extrovert, more emotional, more in general. So I find that the difference in personality sometimes is what makes it hard to say no.
Very, very hard and very well said. And thank you for sharing that, because that is really challenging. You know, one of my best friends in Massachusetts, she was also a teacher. She's retired. And she would say to me, I give you a lot of credit for being on all these committees. I don't want to spend my retirement negotiating with people anymore. And so, in a sense, that is kind of what it's like. But, you know, it's hard to find that space to navigate when you have to deal, you're right, with a lot of different personalities. And I love the fact of what I heard from you to say you're finding that you're working on that. And, you know, we're all in having the awareness and being able to say, you know what, I am working on this. But the most important thing is taking care of your needs and your values first. And as you're listening to a lot of these different personalities, keep in mind that sometimes people are saying just what the people before them have said. Or, you know, the person who's dominating the conversation, well, maybe they're going along just to go along, but they're really not saying what is truly in their heart. That's how I operate it. I'm getting off that train because it was just not helpful. And I agree, when people are paying your salary, you know, you're a little bit fearful. I don't want to have a bad reputation because, you know, I don't want to be evaluated. I know teachers now are, you know, there's all different levels. You're either, I don't know, is it professional development where you met expectations or you didn't meet expectations. So it's almost like teachers are given a report card. I don't know, you know, that just started to happen the last 5 years that I was teaching. I don't know. There are a lot of things right now, and I know you can't do it because you're in the field. I just don't think that a lot of things now in education are working. And so it's best that I am not there as an older person, because perhaps I would say, no, you know, I don't want to spend, you know, time that we are supposed to devote to teaching children new concepts to teaching to the test. And that's what we did in Massachusetts. I don't know if Chicago's any different. We'll take one more question, and then I'm going to go to our Bill of Rights, the art of saying no, Bill of Rights. Can somebody, maybe Sarah, do you want to choose a question from one of these cards? I'll give Sarah a few minutes.
Yeah, no, I think I like that bottom middle one. The one about the relationship impact that sometimes saying no can have.
Yes. Sarah, can you speak on that for us?
Oh,
I'll give you a few minutes. I can go to somebody else. And we don't want to, you don't have to talk about like something that's really painful,
right,
but
right.
maybe it could be with your child or, you know, grandparent or, you know, or keep it, you know, general, could be the neighbor.
Yeah, I mean, oh, it looks like Anna might have a story.
Okay, Anna raised her hand. Anna?
Yeah,
Thank
I
you,
don't
Sarah.
know if you wanted to go, Sarah, but I do have one. I do have one that I've been thinking about a little bit throughout this talk, but so I don't want to like interrupt or anything.
No, not at all. We would love to hear
Okay.
from you.
Yeah, I think one thing that I said no to, which has many layers to it, and one of the layers is like a very reason why I had to say no is because of a very traumatic event that happened. But I once used to like go out to like happy hour with my coworkers,
Mm.
And I have had to say no because something had happened that just made me feel very uncomfortable. So I started saying no. And I would just say like, no, maybe another time. I guess I was one of the maybe people. Maybe it wasn't a confirmed no, but I
Right.
kept saying no. I kept saying no. So and eventually I think one of the coworkers, I don't know if I could have communicated. I said no so many times that I felt that I changed the like dynamic to like, oh, she doesn't want to do anything, like kind of judgmental in a way. And I know that maybe the coworker didn't mean to make it come across that way. Um, so like I gave the benefit of the doubt, but then I kind of started worrying, like, oh no, like what does he think of me? Like what does he just think that I don't like him? Like, because that's not the case. I'm just saying no because I can't do anything. Like I can't do happy hour
And good
anymore.
for
Not that I
you.
can't hang out with him, but like I just can't do that.
And that was your way. And I have to, commend you for this because I probably would have just sat there at happy hour, not too happy in its happy hour. But you put a stop to it and said, this is my boundary. I like you, but I'm just not going to go to the happy hour. And I think that was very wise if it wasn't working for you, because you need to take care of you and your needs. And sometimes, and I don't want to fault, teachers, but sometimes teachers can get into some of the workplace gossip. And unfortunately, happy hours is where it's at. And that's where people can get in trouble. And there have been, once I had kids and other commitments, I could not go to the happy hours and I really didn't care about that. But when, you want to be part of things, I could see why people do go. But then, if something is happening or your internal emotions are telling you, something's not right here, listen to them, which is what you did. It was wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate that. Anybody else, or Sarah, can we come back to you?
No, I think that was a very, very good, good example. Anna, thank you for sharing. Anne Marie, I just wanted to mention we're about 8 minutes over, so I want to make sure to give you an opportunity to wrap up before everyone kind of scoots off.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Thank you. And just one more thing, and we're going to we'll have people take turns. I'll be sending people this on a PDF, and I'll be sending you some other things. If we just have maybe one person just to read one of the Art of Bill of Rights, it should be Active Bill of Rights. Sorry about that. Anybody want to read?
I'll read one, Anne Marie.
Okay, Sarah.
I pulled out of the last opportunity. I have a right to say a positive no and not use avoidance as a tactic because I'm afraid of offending the other.
It's a good one. Okay. Anybody else?
I'll read the first one.
Okay.
I have a right to say a positive no to friends, family, colleagues as a part of my self-care.
Because you're saying yes to yourself. And I have the right to stop, set back, and gain perspective on the situation before I practice my positive no. Thank you all for spending the time with me tonight. That's the end of my series. If you want to, I have a website, Heartwise Relationship Coaching. You can get in touch with me. I love doing presentations to schools. What I'm hoping is if you could write me a testimonial, and continue to have a wonderful summer, teachers. Stay safe and remember to take care of yourself. Thank you all so much. And I wish you all a wonderful night. And it's been lovely being with all of you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne Marie. Thank you all
You're
so much
welcome.
for coming.
Thank
We have
you
such
so much.
lovely comments in
Thank you, Anne Marie.
the
You're
chat.
welcome. Thank you
So
all.
I put this in the chat as well really quickly. I will be sending a follow-up email that will include links to the deck and resources, Anne Marie's website. Thank you all so much for being here. If you need anything from me, from CFE, if we can be of any support or service whatsoever that you can think of, please reach out. We're here for you. That's why we exist. So, this is actually our last chat for now. If you have other ideas, if you have things that you'd really like to see, if you'd like to see more of this type of thing, please let me know. We've done 35 of these in the last couple of years, and they've been wonderful. But it's helpful to have a little bit of help with sort of deciding what to do. So at any rate, have wonderful evenings. Anne Marie, thank you so much, and
Thank you.
hope to see you all
Thank
soon.
you all. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye now.